didn't know this. Real quick, Wakanda Forever just got released. Everybody's going to see it. I need to go see it. Jonathan Kuminga took a bunch of inner city youth in Oakland to the movies last night to go see Wakanda Forever. That's pretty cool. Saw Clay at Kip Academy the other day in Hunters Point.
Yeah.
Jonathan Kuminga taking a bunch of kids to go see Black Panther.
Kip Bayview Academy. I wonder if they're going to, the new gym, I wonder if they're going to host games for CYO because we play them from time to time in our leagues. And so, it was really cool to see Clay do that. The kids went crazy.
And Jonathan Kuminga taking the kids last night to go see Wakanda Forever. That's pretty cool.
Really cool.
That is pretty cool. By the way, we're going to give away some tickets. Know your show. So we're going to interview John Bosa in moments, the father of Joey and Nick Bosa.
Okay.
And you got the sounder ready, Spadoni? All right, when you hear this sounder,
Curry!
You call in to the contest line, and we're going to ask you a question about knowing that show. And you have to answer a question about the interview with John Bosa. And you will be off to see the Dubs and Clippers November 23rd at Chase Center. Again, we're giving away Warrior tickets today. Win tickets to see the Dubs play the Clippers Wednesday, November 23rd at Chase Center. Tune in for our chat with John Bosa at 7:20 and listen carefully. Because after we get off the phone with John, when you hear this sounder,
Curry!
be the fifth caller on the contest line, 415-951-2386, and answer a question about the interview with John Bosa. And you will be off to see the Dubs and the Clippers Wednesday, November 23rd at Chase Center. It'll be a big-time game. Big-time game. Paul George and the Clippers for the first time this season. So, John Bosa and Nick Bosa. So, you were saying 20 sacks for Nick Bosa. 20 sacks. DPOI. Best defensive player. Now, he got hurt, was derailed the season a little bit, but we saw some of that pass rush against the LA Rams, and I think he's getting healthier and healthier. Micah Parsons is up there. Probably that's the only other guy I could think of defensively.
Well,
heck, Hufanga maybe. Sauce Gardner's been really good.
Sauce Gardner's getting a lot of love right now.
Quentin Williams.
Yeah, Quinnen Williams, absolutely. I mean, that entire New York Jets defense. But I want to ask John Bosa about the weightlifting program for the kids. Maybe help your boy over here get a little more ripped.
I don't think you can roll with the Bosas, man.
No, I do not think so.
Let's bring in Papa
I do not
Bosa.
think so.
Let's bring in Papa Bosa, the father of Nick and Joey, and a former NFL player himself down in Miami for the Dolphins, playing alongside Dan Marino, and they are in the business of sacking quarterbacks. John, it's good to have you back on the Morning Roast again. Joe Shasky, the Butcher, Bonte Hill, as we get ready for the Bosa Bowl, although Joey is still dealing with that groin injury. First of all, good morning to you, John, and how's Joey doing as we get ready for Chargers and Niners?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Joey is actually doing fantastic. He's in, I think, week 6 now of an 8 to 10 week rehab, so no setbacks. He's feeling great, and it's actually, unfortunately, it's a blessing in disguise because he had a lot of damage on the left side, and his injury initially was on the right. But when they went in there, they were able to fix both sides, so he'll be good as new.
No doubt. The Chargers are 5-3, looking to make a run in the AFC. The Niners, of course, 4-4. They just picked up Christian McCaffrey, and his defense is humming. So even though Joey might not be playing, how cool is it for you and the family to see both Bosas on the field at the same time Sunday Night Football this coming up at Levi Stadium?
Well, it's certainly special. It would have been a lot more special for me to root, on the defensive side of the ball the whole game, and that's it. But I'm gonna stay neutral and wear white and all white or all black and just root for the defenses. But it's a really important game for both teams.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, we found an interesting nugget. One of our producers here, he says, the Bosa family is a half sack away from reaching 100 sacks as a family. That would be the 6th family in NFL history. I'm just going to name a couple of them: the Watts, the Matthews, the Longs, the Randalls. I mean, that's exclusive company. I think you guys can be at the top of this list when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I had no idea those numbers, but I know that will be probably a goal for Joe alone. Nick's right on his heels, and it's obviously I'm super proud of what they've accomplished. And unfortunate, injuries happen, and unfortunately, Joe won't be out there, but certainly a proud moment.
How are the two boys different in terms of their pass rushing skills or what they bring to a football field between the two of them? Because it feels like Nick, more set the edge guy. It feels like Joey's a little more upright. Both explosive, just beasts. But how would you describe their games being different?
Well, I think, obviously Nick has benefited from being behind Joe and getting some incredible coaching as a young player. You know, he sat in on Larry Johnson meetings when he was in high school, and Joey was at Ohio State. So he obviously got a lot of extra coaching that Joey didn't get. But the difference, I think, is Joey is a little bit more technical, and not by much, but Joey definitely has the hand technique down to a science. And Nick is a little more powerful. I think being two inches shorter is actually, I think, a little bit of a advantage for Nick, because he can get under guys, and he's always played with incredible leverage. So I think Nick has a little bit more power, and Joey is a little bit more of a technician.
We're talking to John Bosa, the father of Nick and Joey Bosa. Of course, the Bosa Bowl, one half of the Bosa Bowl will be out there. Nick's going to play. Of course, he had a groin injury earlier this season. Joey's out with the groin injury, so he'll be back later in the year for the Chargers, but the family will be out here in neutral colors. No jerseys, just neutral colors at Levi Stadium for Sunday Night Football. You talked about how important this game is, and Nick Bosa, I thought, was starting off this campaign as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Now, I know recently, I think it was you that said, he's not worried about that. He's worried about winning. But you look at the 8.5 sacks and the impact that he has on a game-by-game basis. How much better can Nick get? Because right now it feels like he's already at the top of the mountain when it comes to pass rushers.
Oh, I don't think he feels that way. Just the way that he attacked this bye week. He didn't go anywhere. He stayed there. He rehabbed any little lingering soreness or anything. He was training the whole time, and in the training room, he's a big hot tub, cold tub kid and massage. So he always feels he's got things to improve on, and I think that's what makes a great player great. Those guys always, all the great players think that they can improve in some manner. The fact of the matter is, Nick is not focused. Nick's focused on winning football. And loving the 49ers, love his teammates, and winning. I, as a dad, take the disrespect a little bit more personal, because if obviously the guys with stars on their helmets get a lot more recognition, I guess. But I think Nick's Defensive Player of the Year, and that's for me to worry about. And what's great about Nick is he doesn't care. He wants to play.
Yeah,
and win.
We're hoping to get a holding call this Sunday, for crying out loud, right? I mean, Nick, it seems to never get a holding call.
Start with me on that. Look, can they find a father? I don't know.
No, I think you're good. I think you're good, Sean. I think you're good. Don't dip into that NFL pitching, all right? I got to ask you about the personalities, because Joey we saw on Hard Knocks a couple years ago, and I was like, he's kind of a fun dude. Yeah. He's got a personality, even though they look so quiet. And then Nick, we've gotten to know Nick a little bit since he's been here in San Francisco. And every time he gets a quote, I get a bit of a chuckle. They've got underrated personalities. Where does that come from? Does that come from you or your lovely wife?
I'm not sure. I mean, they're definitely very quiet off the field, and they've always had a very, they keep to themselves, very quiet. But Nick is brutally honest, within that subtle humor and kind of monotone, he speaks the truth, and he gives a lot of thought to what he says. And Joey has always been a little bit of he's a little goofier, Joe's a little goofier, but obviously just very serious about football, and that's really their focus. But Nick takes a lot of time, preparing for when he speaks to, he's obviously the typical leader by example.
Yeah.
But when he has a chance to speak to the team, he gives a lot of thought to it, and really wants to speak from the heart and just speak to the love of his teammates, which I think is amazing.
What did you think when they made the trade for Christian McCaffrey?
Well, I was surprised and thrilled. I don't know a lot about the kid. Obviously, I know how great he was and had been hampered a little bit by injury, but just him in that offense with Debo and Brandon and George, just all the weapons. He's just a fantastic kid and a fantastic player, and just watching him, the feel that he has, both in the pass game and then hitting the hole. He's a special kid. Special player, and obviously thrilled to have him added.
John Bosa here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game. Doesn't it feel like, we could talk about the Chargers in a second, but it feels like the Niners at 4-4, getting that big win against the Rams a couple weeks ago down at SoFi Stadium. it feels like this team is about to start humming. Offensively, we know where they're at defensively. It feels like this team is primed to make a run. And when you look at the NFC, it's up for grabs. And who would want to play the 49ers, John? I know you're a little biased there, but they have the formula.
And I agree. And really, and Nick said it last time he spoke. It's really one day at a time, and that's his philosophy. And I think the one thing that people underestimated is the amount of time that Jimmy would take to kind of get back into the swing of things. The guy really didn't do a lot in preseason, obviously, concentrating on getting his arm and shoulder right. So I think that was a little, I don't think people took into consideration the time that it might take for him to get back in, to get with his receivers and get back into a slightly different game plan. But now with the weapons they have, obviously the defense, I'm just heartbroken about Verrett. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And Nick told me, and his voice was cracking. It's just such a horrible thing. Obviously he would have been a great addition in the back end, but I agree with you. I mean, the Niners have in the last few years have kind of stumbled out of the blocks a little bit for different reasons, but I do feel that they're kind of getting into the swing, and the defense is still, if they get Eric back and some guys back, it's a dangerous defense, and obviously the offense has the weapons, so it's super exciting.
Yeah, and they've added some young players, it feels like, to the mix that are, obviously, Hufanga's had an unbelievable impact throughout the first 8 games of the season, and then Drake Jackson on the edge at times has been very, very productive. It feels like they're starting to really build a young unit together for the future, and your son and Fred Warner are the centerpieces of that defense.
Absolutely, and Fred is, that linebacker crew, when those three are healthy, that's, to me, the best 3 linebackers in the league as a unit. And obviously, Kinlaw is having some issues. He's another potentially great young player. I think Drake is coming along. He has some things to learn, but obviously just an incredibly talented a player. So there's and it's funny now talking about Nick being a veteran, he's still my little Nick, but with him and Fred, and then obviously the pieces they have and the young kids, and it's just, it's a really, on all 3 levels, they have the talent. Obviously, you have to weather the storm, losing some guys here and there, but that's what you do in the NFL. The next guy steps up, and I know that's a common saying, next man up, but sadly, that's really what it's got to be, and so the DBs have to step up.
John, you've told us about their childhood, the boys growing up, all the different steps along the way, all the different sports that they've played. What does Nick do for fun on the side? Is he like a video gamer? Does he watch Star Wars? Is he into Netflix, true crime docs? Like, what does he do in his off time that's not football related?
John, real quick, John, if you say he loves Star Wars, just lie about it, because then my co-host will get giddy over it.
I'm not going to. No, he's a big reader.
Oh, really?
He reads a lot of books. He loves to read history. He hands the books to me, and the last book he handed to me was about the Donner Party, about the people going over the Sierra Nevadas and the nightmare that they ran into. He did buy a boat in the last off season, which is parked behind my house, and I have to keep it maintained for him, which is awfully convenient. So he loves the water. He is a bit of a gamer, but not, Joey's a little bit more, I think, did a little bit more gaming than Nick. But Nick really, and I know it sounds crazy, but he is just singularly focused on training and getting better. And in the off season, that's what he does. And in the season, obviously, that's what he does. But yeah, they enjoy the water. They enjoy the South Florida lifestyle in the off season. And other than that, he's got his chef cooking the proper meals, and he's reading a book.
There you go. I love that. John Bosa here. We got a couple more for John Bosa, the father of Nick and Joey Bosa. One, we got a question from YouTube Danker. I wonder what Papa Bosa thinks Drake should work on. Drake Jackson. Shasky brought up Drake Jackson. What do you think he should work on, the rookie out of USC who's playing alongside your son, Nick?
I wouldn't be able to say really a lot other than what Nick has said. And it's his physical he's a physical freak. He's bendy. He's got great technique. I think playing a little bit lower and just getting the feel for what NFL offensive linemen are trying to do to you are the only things that I've heard Nick mention. But as far as having all the tools, and not to brag about my sons, but they did come into the league with a surprisingly toolbox that they were ready to go at the NFL level. And some of these guys who may take a tiny bit longer to develop, he has all the tools, and I think he just has to get the feel for what O-linemen are doing to him and maybe work a little bit more on technique. But Nick's excited and really loves him.
It's interesting. You've referenced his body so many times, and when we went to practice, I'm standing there. No, I'm serious. This is a field of Adonises, and your son is head and shoulders just chiseled, and it's impossible to not get this image out of my head. When did you start to dedicate, or when did the boys start to dedicate themselves to weightlifting and nutrition and just keeping their body intact? Because it clearly is not something that they just started doing in their teens. It feels like they've been doing it their entire life.
Well, no, they haven't actually. And I mean, they were always weightlifting in high school, and then in college they really didn't get. They were training hard, but the jump when Joe went to the Chargers and now got his trainer Todd Rice. That's really when a lot of the training and the nutrition changed. And Joey has a lot of aches and pains from overlifting when he was in high school. They were still a little bit more into the powerlifting type workouts. Whereas if you watched my sons work out on the field in the off season, and I didn't tell you what sport they were playing, they train like sprinters. So it's all about speed, and for about 80% of the session, it's stretching, and then it's sprinting. It's get off, it's agility, it's all speed related. So, other than the fact that they're, 260, they literally look like they're training for sprinting. And then Nick, with the nutrition, has really changed when he saw the changes when Joey got a chef, and when they got into the league and were able to really concentrate on nutrition. That's what's kind of pushed Nick over as far as body fat and strength and speed. So it was really, for Joe, it was about 7 years ago, and Nick is really over the last 4 years taking it to that next level.
All right, John Bosa, last one before we get out here. We have a producer named Evan Giddings on our midday shows, and he's a diehard Charger fan. I got to ask you, because I watch Charger games from afar. We all do. They seem like they're in games that comes down to the final play every single week. How does your heart handle watching Charger games, for crying out loud, John?
Well, it's been, and if you go back to when Joey was with the previous coaches, they lost all those close games. I mean, there were years where they lost 6 or 7 one-score games, and they were losing in the last field goal. They'd miss a field goal. I mean, it was painful. And it was hard because I knew how much Joey loves winning and loved his teammates, and it just wasn't happening. And so it's a little easier now because they are able to pull those games out at the end. But now with such a special talent at quarterback and a really a loaded roster, they're making it a tad bit easier for me to watch. Not that much, but a little bit better.
All right, WWE style tag team match: TJ and his brother JJ Watt versus Nick and Joey Bosa. Who's winning and why?
Oh, come on. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
I mean, JJ, if you're talking about right now, JJ's past his prime, but Joey's got JJ, and no one's handling Nick. No one's handling Nick.
Are you taking on their dad?
What's that?
Are you taking on their dad?
No competition.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
I've talked to him before. I'll take him on.
Yeah, come on. You see, John is still
John's
ripped.
the
We got
best.
your photo up on YouTube right now, and your jawline is still perfect. Hey, John. Hey, this is always a lot of fun when we get
really
to talk to you,
appreciate
man.
it.
We hope they meet up in bigger stakes, hopefully later this season.
Yes.
Chargers 5-3, Niners 4-4. Look, it's a big-time game, but hopefully you have a lot of fun back in the Bay Area coming out to this game, man. We hope to see you Sunday.
Hey, it's always great to speak to you guys, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, come
Anytime.
on. We love watching your son play. You're a good man.
Awesome.
Thank
Good
you.
talking to you guys.
Yep.
John Bosa,
That
the
was
father
great.
of Nick and Joey Bosa. He's funny. He's
great.
hilarious. He knows his football, too.
Oh,
I mean,
my
he played
God.
it.
Of course.
The technical stuff, the speed, the workouts.